I saw that there were tons of pro athletes signing an open letter to Lululemon calling on them to become more sustainable, at first I was really excited. But then within a few seconds of reading the article, I actually came away a little bit disappointed. And here's why. I'm Shara from the Green Stocking Society, and in today's video we are breaking down all of the ins and outs of Lululemon's sustainability claims and commitments. Let's dive in. So the organisation's eco-athletes and Actions Speak Louder have been calling on Lululemon to phase out the use of fossil fuels in their supply chain and to transition towards 100% renewable energy. This is really important given that about 10% of all global carbon emissions come from the fashion industry. Don't get me wrong, we definitely need to hasten the transition towards using more renewables, especially considering the fact that Lululemon's carbon footprint has increased by 60% in the last year. Half of their manufacturing is powered by coal. But a lot more nuance is actually needed when we're talking about emissions. So we shouldn't just be talking about the energy that they're using to keep the lights on in their offices, but also the energy that is being used to actually create the material that goes into their products. While Lululemon has reported transitioning their Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions to be using renewable energy, these emissions actually only account for about 5% of the total emissions associated with the company. So Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions are the things that are directly or indirectly caused by the company, such as the emissions from their company cars or from keeping the lights on in their offices and things like that. Scope 3 emissions, by contrast, are all the other emissions that are associated with the company but not directly or even indirectly. So this covers things like the production of the actual raw materials that they then buy to make their clothes and the transportation of those and things like that. This is actually the messiest and most complicated category, but it is the most important because it does make up the bulk of their overall environmental impact on the planet. And that is what Lululemon is kind of ignoring. The very things that they are selling as a health and well-being focused activewear provider are things like leggings and sports bras and running jackets and things like this, which are being made from predominantly polyester and nylon. Now, polyester is made from oil, which is of course a fossil fuel. So to not take into account the emissions and the impact on the planet from that very first stage of production is to avoid talking about the real big elephant in the room. So yes, you could run all of your direct operations based off renewable energy, but you can't use the rays of the sun to create more polyester, you know? If that wasn't bad enough, synthetic fibres like polyester are also really harmful for our marine life, because when we wash them, they release microplastics into our waterways, which are really harmful for everything that lives in our oceans, and also us because we eat the stuff in our oceans. Lululemon are saying that they want 75% of their polyester to come from recycled sources by 2025, which is great, except for the fact that recycled polyester isn't really the answer. It still sheds microplastics, and at the same time, polyester is really difficult to manufacture into new clothing when it's worn out, when it's full of holes and you're throwing it away. So it's likely that that clothing will just end up in landfill and not be remade into new clothing and kept in circulation. That said, Lululemon do have a decent looking resale program. They state that since they launched their Like New program in April 2022, they've kept over £127,000 of gently used Lululemon gear in action and out of landfill. Plus, the profits from the purchases of their Like New products go to the Apparel Impact Institute's Fashion Climate Fund. At the bottom of the page, they say that part of creating a circular ecosystem means keeping gear that's still good going. And yes, that's true. Very true. We need to keep clothes in circulation to mend, repair, resell, rewear, swap, rent, all of these different things to keep clothing in circulation and in use instead of going to landfill. But it's the use of the word circular that really piqued my interest on this page, because circularity and talking about a circular economy for fashion is something that a lot of brands are starting to do as a greenwashing tactic, when they don't really understand what it takes to transition their supply chains to become truly circular. In the case of Lululemon, they, well, talk circles around circularity without actually explaining what the heck it is that they're doing with it. So listen to this. We're in the early stages of a transformation towards a circular ecosystem. Circularity inspires a whole new way of creating and assessing products away from a linear approach and towards a creative and regenerative model that engages guests and keeps products in use as long as possible. We know this is a challenging space that requires collaboration and innovation, but with our business model, we're uniquely positioned to create positive change, and will engage designers in bringing circularity to life through training tools and innovation labs towards design solutions that consider impacts throughout the product life cycle. What did that actually mean? Because I have no idea. Like nothing, like head empty. And they followed it up with, will adapt infrastructure to take back products after first use and recycle materials into a valuable next life, including fiber to fiber. That gives us a little bit more of a hint and a few more details, but in essence it's still very vague and wishy-washy, for lack of a more academic term. Elsewhere on the site, under textile recycling, there's mention of over 90% of damaged or excess products being resold, donated, or recycled, which is important because even before we get to the products actually reaching the customer, there's a lot of waste that goes on with the offcuts that are left on the cutting room floor, for example, and also defective items and things like that. But they followed it up by saying this stuff is recycled into insulation, filling for mattresses, and so on. This is also known as downcycling, and a recent report by Changing Markets has found that a lot of the clothing that gets donated to these fashion brands' take-back schemes actually end up being downcycled and turned into things like insulation. Now, this is better than them just ending up in landfill because at least we're using them and recycling them in some way, but the value of these clothes is not preserved because they're being turned into things that are of a lower value. When you downcycle a t-shirt, for example, you've removed that particular item of clothing from the global fashion economy and ecosystem, and that means that it's likely that another new t-shirt is going to have to take its place, rather than us taking that old t-shirt, maybe it's got holes in it, maybe it's just stained, it's worn out, no one wants to wear it anymore. We could shred that material down, respin it, and turn it into new clothing, and some brands are already actually doing this, and that is what is called a truly circular economy. And that is the difference between fiber to fiber recycling and downcycling. When you recycle fiber to fiber, you're keeping material in use, and therefore you are saving yourself from having to use the extra energy, water, and so on required to make that material from scratch. So it's a really great option for making fashion more sustainable. I guess it was a bit too much to hope that a fast fashion brand like Lululemon would be taking this kind of circularity seriously and actually thinking about what their products are made from and how those things will be remade at the end of that product's life cycle. Instead, they've just baited me with this promising but then incredibly disappointing paragraph on their sustainability page, so listen to this. It starts off well. They say they want to make waste obsolete. We want to make waste a thing of the past. But are you ready to have your heart absolutely shattered? Because then they go on to specify that packaging is a current reality of our industry and we're taking steps to eliminate, reduce, reuse, and recycle where possible. Yes, packaging is the biggest problem, not the stuff that you're actually packaging. Oh, and if we're going to talk about packaging, let's talk about the fact that they've only committed to reduce their single-use plastic by 50%, when plenty of brands have successfully transitioned away from using plastic completely in their packaging, and they are now using paper-based or more natural alternatives. But I am learning that there is no lack of real sustainability commitments that a fun, cool, innovative, new techie product can't cover up. So without further ado, introducing Lululemon's new plant-based nylon made in collaboration with a company called Genomatica.
Plant sugars are fermented to make the building block for nylon, increasing our use of renewable resources. Like magic, plant-based nylon emerges, knit into materials we love. We made a move for the planet. You'll never feel the difference.
But funny story, when I went to the Lululemon website to search for those products and typed in Genomatica into the search bar, it didn't actually return any search results. Like none. So, I mean, at At this point, this video basically wrote itself. We've seen Nike do a very similar thing, for example, with their Space Hippie range, which was really cool and innovative new ways of utilizing waste. But at the end of the day, it was limited to 4 styles, which sold out really quickly. Making some cool new techie innovative thing that then isn't actually applied to the rest of your supply chain and remains some kind of like little gimmick for your brand is just greenwashing. That is not real sustainability. When Lululemon start actually making all of their clothes from this cool new plant-based nylon, then we can talk. And what's at the base of all of this? Well, profit and capitalism. Good old capitalism. According to Business Wire, Lululemon are hoping to double their revenue from 2021 to 2026. They have no intention of slowing down. They don't care about the amount of stuff they're making. They don't care about encouraging overconsumption. They don't care about how the products that they are selling will be dealt with at the end of their life. One of the biggest issues with the fast fashion industry is that we are just making too much and buying too much. There is already enough clothing on the planet to clothe several generations of human beings. We don't actually need more new clothing, which makes it incredibly ironic that the Lululemon sale that a lot of people are raving about at the moment should be called their "we made too much" sale. Damn right you're making too much, and it's not actually a cute look. As a final point, we do have to talk about how ethical Lululemon is, because ethics is a big part of sustainability, and social and climate justice also need to be taken into account when we're talking about the sustainability of any brand. The brand rating app Good On You says that none of Lululemon's supply chain is certified for labour standards to ensure worker safety or living wages. In the 2023 Fashion Transparency Index, they scored 52 out of 100, which is granted well above the average, but that says a lot more about the brands that were rated below Lululemon than it says about how great their transparency actually is. Whilst they've made some big declarations on their site that they stand for humanity, diversity and empathy, and that they are working on this new inclusion, diversity, equity and action mission, it seems to be largely focused on the people working directly for Lululemon, not the garment workers making their clothes halfway around the world. They don't own their factories, so they have limited control over the conditions in them. They do have a vendor code of ethics, which they hold all of their suppliers to, covering things like child labour, corruption and forced labour. They do say that their vendors are reviewed for performance every quarter, but the information is quite loose, at least when you compare it to what Allbirds have done this year by releasing the list of all of their factories, how many people work there, what their independent certifications are, and so on. This seems pretty surface level compared to that in terms of transparency on what they could be doing. It's very sort of, trust us, we know what we're doing. We'll sort it out, we'll take care of it. You don't need to worry about that. Instead of like actually providing real evidence to back up their claims. So overall, Good On You gives Lululemon a not good enough rating. Shocker. Let's recap some of the red flags that we've explored in this brand review. So number 1, a one-off, completely random, tech-based, cool, innovative new collection that then isn't actually rolled out across the rest of the product range. Tick. Number 2, vague and general ambitions about circularity without any real detail. Check. Number 3, continuing ambitions to grow and grow and grow on a planet with finite resources, regardless of any issues of overconsumption. Yep. Number 4, still using coal to power your supply chain and focusing only on Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions in your transition to renewable energy. Yeah. Number 5, using nylon and polyester in your products and thinking that recycled polyester is the solution. Check. And number 6, the cherry on top, of course, the lack of transparency when it comes to the working conditions of the people that are actually making your products. Hopefully next time you come across a brand like Lululemon, you see them in the news or on your Instagram feed or anything like that and you think, How sustainable are they really? These are some telltale signs that you can look out for to help you make that judgment and to make decisions about what you buy that are a bit kinder to people and the planet. What brand should I review next? Let me know in the comments, and if you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out and it helps this content to spread to a lot more people here on YouTube. Until next time, stay kind and I'll see you later. Bye!